shimasu.
Onegaishimasu.
Okay, okay, good. Let's just loosen up a little bit. Oh, okay, okay. I take it swing in front of that. And take it to the sides. Okay, and take it to rotation one. And taking opening, closing. And in all the directions, just move in freely, following the body like that.
So we just play with one, just take this as far as you like, but start to work with the hands in the ground. It's a really great one for the hips and shoulders. Just start to play with taking a little bit more weight into the hands, so it doesn't have to be a lot. You could take this very lightly, like fingertip contact. But just start to play, maybe transfer a little bit of weight into the hands. Maybe starting to take a foot out of the ground. And you could do this any direction, you could go a little bit back as well, a little bit to the side. Just play within a light range. If you get a little bit lightheaded with this, you could do exactly the same just on the wall. So just kind of taking a little bit more weight into the hands. Really more kind of shoulder exercise than anything else, but if you start to explore the legs as well, then it can become also like a hip work exercise. So you could do this on a wall, you could do it on a also like a bench or a sofa, a little bit lower, just to get a little bit more weight going into the shoulders. You could think of any kind of movement, really, lots of animal walk kind of movements in this area. Press ups, obviously. Handstand, yeah, great, good. That's a good one. Yeah, great. Wall walking, yeah, great. See, handstands, cartwheels, all this kind of stuff. Probably maybe not go that far, a bit early, not so much coffee. Just basically play with the hands like the feet in a sense. So maybe play with like squat positions, lunge positions. Just see what starts to come up, follow a little bit. Everybody wants to go a little bit. There we go. Interesting. Yeah, great. Yeah, nice. This one. All right. Well, guess what? Actually, one Catherine's this really good one. So it's go as low as you can, and you just want to be just within range of the floor. So you can sweep the floor with the hand this way. This one now becomes a bit more of a leg exercise, and then think about also kind of staying low and maybe transferring the weight to one leg, and then just play with kind of stepping in and out, and then the hand can kind of remain in this kind of area. Or obviously, if you feel like it, you can come a little bit further up, but maybe just play in this kind of area, so the hand's kind of brush the ground, and I'm just going to play with, again, you've got an issue of balance coming up probably. Just start to play within this area, again, playfully through the hips, just exploring. Feeling anything like real tightness or intense feeling in the hips, obviously just come up a little bit, and just be careful of the knees, obviously. Ankle mobility, all this kind of stuff will come up. Just a very light kind of touch, you could do that with one arm, or you could do it with both. I think of the hands in this one like an insect antenna. And kind of just feeling, not taking any weight in this case. Maybe giving direction, maybe just, interesting, nice Asian. Yeah, good. And you can play with like single leg balances. You could play with, yeah, great. Yeah, good, nice. That's good, yeah, great. Good. And then just play with one idea which we've been working more like in the rotation spiral kind of range. So that same kind of idea you could do like with a brush, but think about maybe starting to expand into spiral. Find the spiral base in the core and in the spine. So you've obviously got spirals going down the legs and in the arms, which are two things, but think about the core of the spiral is going to be in a kind of opening position here. You've got classic poses like more like windmill poses, but you could also think about just very basic kind of patterns, and you don't really need to this one so deep to get the spiral lines in the body kind of working. But just think in terms of getting like rotations, circular kind of patterns, and just gets the kind of, if there's one point of focus to the body, like the core, the body spreading out, then that spiral work's going to become quite clear, and let the movement start to kind of spread out from the body, from the centre of the body out. You obviously got lots of range of motion in the shoulders and the hips, so just maybe it just means exploring in an area. There's things like the teacup exercise, all these kind of classic mobility exercises for the shoulders. Do a similar one with the hip. But just play within a range which is working with spirals, with waves maybe start to come out. Noticing all the time the kind of position of the head as well, and what we were looking at yesterday, the kind of weight of the head as you go into these positions. Again, no wrong position for the head, it's just going to be whether it's within the structure or whether it feels like it's kind of starting to split out in the structure. So just notice maybe like stress points in the body. The body's pretty good at picking up misalignments in the body, and they'll come across maybe as tightness or tension, however you kind of describe that feeling. Nice. Great. And then next one, just coming back onto the feet. You could do this statically or with a little bit of movement. It's really the kind of more of a kind of teacup exercise, but just doing it kind of loose way. So if you've got a teacup, it will be like trying to keep it all the time in this kind of pattern. Really useful exercise, and if you want, take it there. But just play with maybe a little bit of a loose one as well, so I'm not so worried about losing the teacup. But just play with, feeling here. The main thing again is obviously notice you could do this exercise like led with the hands, and kind of the body's static, and the hands kind of lead everything. Useful maybe sometimes, but if you think about maybe a bit more, the nugget of the movement's going to be kind of in maybe in the sternum, spreading out. And if you can get it kind of working in the sternum area, maybe let it drop a little bit lower, so let it go maybe a little bit deeper into the core of the body. And you could think about, one nice way to think about this is also like the tailbone. Imagine the tailbone's kind of heavy, hanging off. Imagine you've actually got your tail attached. And just play with kind of swaying and swishing that area, and let it pass to the hands. So you'll notice again, you're going into kind of tricky positions probably with the shoulder. You'll notice again, you'll start to notice tension in the shoulder. Just try and get to a point where it feels kind of light, loose. And that's going to be in the range where the shoulder's kind of comfortable, obviously. And that means the spine's going to kind of adapt to the movement as well. So as you do it, then start to maybe think about looking around the space. I'm just going to kind of explore the space a little bit with the eyes, let the hands and body naturally follow. And then once you've got that going again, maybe just start to think that the core of the body's really kind of leading the movement, and then the eyes maybe just start to kind of drift around on their own, or included with the body. And you can take this exercise anywhere if you Like you might start to get kind of spiraling koku work come out. Just explore really the shoulders. Yeah, good, great. Also think with this, it's the point that it doesn't tend to go, because we tend to do this in the front's kind of comfortable, but think about also the back of the room as well. So you can think about that motion. And there's lots of examples in the system, even just the weapon system, where you're really challenging the body in this kind of area. So just kind of open the shoulders up. So maybe it goes into a little bit more kind of rotation work as you do it. And maybe it starts to go some this idea of like splitting the hand work as well. So maybe the hands start to kind of divide through. And then if I'm working from the core of the body, making space out, then that splitting won't come across as, it won't feel like splitting, it will just feel like spreading out. If I'm working from the hands out, it will probably feel like I'm splitting away from the body. So we've got a great system in the technical syllabus, which is the Ninindori, where you're working with two partners. And this really forces you to kind of go into this kind of mode where you're trying to not be split up, but try and work as one piece, but maybe both sides of the body are doing different things. So there's lots of examples within, particularly the taijutsu, where this is a really needs to be a skill in a sense. It's a skill that I need to practice. Great. And then with that, again, nothing specifically with it, but think about maybe starting to step with it, so starting to kind of work with it. You'll probably start to feel like kind of these kind of motions come up. And if you know any of those kind of positions where you've got two people grabbing either side and you're looking to kind of roll in, maybe play with those movements, but just think in terms of basic mobility work. Think about that mobility through the shoulders, the hips, the feet, and then just think about giving the body direction with it. You can think about maybe also lots of the 𝗓𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦𝗨 stuff, when you've got someone grabbing behind and you're rolling through, particularly later the 𝗓𝗢𝗟𝗡𝗡𝗅 work. So maybe just explore a little bit, and again, things like a 𝗓𝗔𝗨𝗡𝗅 work where you're being attacked from behind. It just brings an awareness to the back of the body, back side of the body. Things like Ninindori, you've got two people either side of the body. Brings a bit more awareness again to the sides, and this feeling of spreading the body out, or spreading the feeling of the body in different directions. Nice. But again, just in terms of mobility work, just think about putting the body in motion as you're doing the spreading or you're extending feeling out. And again, you can go to very simple ones. I've got these two light switches on the wall. You could do very simple exercise, which would be like going to press the light switches. Yes, it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It can be just very simple. And you could also make that also very small. So this feeling of kind of reaching out. Or another one would be like reaching for the corners of the room. Maybe one low and one high. So you can do very simple ones which aren't specific techniques. And then last one, just think about more like a cross-body training. So if you think about right foot and left hand, think about just kind of spreading them out away from each other. Now it doesn't mean that they're kind of pulling away from each other. Again, just kind of create a feeling between them. And it doesn't need to be, very challenging to kind of feel this, but just think about, again, the pressure that goes maybe into the foot and the reach out of the hand and spreading open. And again, just notice again, there's kind of possibilities for the body to kind of split up into pieces. Just notice, or just find a kind of position with it, where again, you can challenge the body by reaching out and sinking down a little bit more, but try and feel that there's a real sense of connection with it. You could imagine like a pole attached from the hand to the foot, and then the body in between like the kind of bowstring, and then just kind of pulling it taut. So the direction's clear in terms of hand to foot, but the pathway through is going to be something in a kind of arc position. Obviously, if I'm kind of spreading and splitting the body and working against the structure, you're going to start to get, again, isolated tension in the joint system. So think about maybe this idea is like you're dispersing tension evenly across the body, the network of the body. And then you can make that very simple. It doesn't need to be complex at all. You could also do this with a wall if you don't feel it, or with a resistance band like Bernie's got. And then you would just kind of again set up the tension, and then maybe just explore trying to increase pressure. And then the feeling would be like trying to press the ground away, and maybe trying to push the wall away as well. And then doing it in a way where I'm not particularly isolating the pressure in the body, but trying to basically create one unit and spread evenly. You can make that very complex, you can make it very challenging. And once you've done a few times on one side, just switch to the other. So then it will be like left foot, right hand, or right foot, left hand. Just training across the body. Again, it's stuff that we do a lot, particularly in the taijutsu work, but what weapon work's really good at is kind of uniting the two sides of the body, particularly sword work. And then when you go to kind of split without the sword or without the weapon, a little bit more of this cross-body stuff starts to come up maybe. Think about a lot of the kokinage work we've got in the system. Pressing away or arcing the body down. And then it just maybe starts to challenge a little bit more if you think about, again, that same kind of idea, but maybe starting to take a little bit more weight into it. So there's classic techniques, obviously, like your Uminage or Kyunage work, but just think about, again, the sense of creating a connection with the hand and the foot across the body, and then maybe just playing with taking a little bit more weight into it. And then again, think about arcs through the body. Again, you've got a kind of direct path, which would be going into like this kind of area where the body starts to get pulled down, or you've got the indirect path through the body, which is going to kind of work in arcs, and maybe spiral work starts to kind of come up, which will be like embedded within the movement, and that's going to be, again, the ability, the articulation to stay free and to stay mobile throughout a kind of tensioning phase of the body, particularly when you've got pressure in the body, whether I can maintain spiral work in the forearms and in the shin bone maybe, you've got quite a bit of mobility there as well. And we just start to challenge a little bit, taking more weight into it. And if you're working on the wall, it maybe means just taking one leg off the ground and then creating that spiral path into it, and then maybe leaning the body into it a little bit. Kissing the thing kind of going backwards, kind of spreading open. So just maybe find some challenging positions, a little bit more challenging. And again, main feedback in this will be like, again, like isolated tension in the body, so maybe feeling like the wrist, a lot of pressure in the wrist, or the ankle maybe. And maybe it's just, it could be lots of things, maybe it's just a mobility issue, or maybe it's just that the focus is being put into that particular point of the body. Might be a recurring injury that comes up. So it could be lots of things. But the feeling would be like trying to get the whole body to just act as one unit. And maybe like globalize the pressure through the body. Good. Great. That's perfect. Okay. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's a good one. That's it. As you will go to this is a specific technique. It's a Koshinage technique. Koshinage is quite an advanced technique. It tends to be safe to later, although it's very fun. I actually teach it very early because it teaches really good chemistry skills anyway, apart from anything else. But simple one with this will be like really stretching out into this direction. So this goes really into kind of a windmill position. So if you were to imagine a windmill position like this, where the hand's reaching up, and again, it's really a cross-body training because this hand and this foot, when I load the person, I would be loading the person onto the back and then obviously kind of coming over with it. This is real cross-body training because it's in the system. It's one of the most pressured kind of parts of the chain, or because you're taking all the load onto the back of the body. So in a simple way, just think about this. It's basically press into one foot. So go into the right foot, and then allow the left hand start to just reach up. And again, just feel that kind of pressure. Again, you can split the body up, where I kind of just form one line through the body, and then the body's trying to conform to one line. Or you can work with a little bit more of a feeling of an arc. And then it can be just like reaching up, and if you know the technique in terms of the cushion, it would be like loading onto the hip, going more into a squat position, and then obviously casting the person off the other side. So then would be like this, and then to this kind of position. So you're working really within this kind of range. The person in this case would go right over the hip, and the 𝗓𝗡𝗟𝗍 is not really later to load the person on the hip and toss them over, it's to press the hips, pass the hips through the person. And the body kind of forms a ledge for a moment, and then the person goes onto it and then drops off, because the body's not there anymore. But we learn it with like full contact in terms of loading the person on the hips. Obviously the structure needs to be in place to load the weight onto the body correctly. But it's a really good one, again, for just this kind of idea of tension. You could also think of a very simple thing like picking up a weight. You could do that with a very light object. And again, just kind of loading a little bit more weight into the chain, the body. You could obviously load, don't really have anything to do, but you could load something actually into the body. And kind of work with, again, just pressure through the body. But then useful just to do as a kind of solo exercise either as well, without any pressure. You could do like anything with a resistance band, just give you a bit more feedback maybe. Nice bit. And then it's going to be somewhere in the idea of arcing the body and noticing, particularly with this one, the tendency if I go like hyperextend the elbow, and then I go into it, all the pressure goes then to the front of the joint. And if I load the person on the body something like this, the weak part of the joint system is going to be the shoulder, and then a lot of pressure goes to the shoulder, and then you get injuries in the shoulder. So think about really based on the kind of koki work we do all the time. Again, it doesn't look anything like sword work, weapon work, but it's based on these kind of ideas of where the body's strong, where it's weak, and trying to also use the stronger aspects of the body. And again, you can play with that a little bit, just taking it one foot, one hand. You could expand it even more. Other 𝗓𝗡𝗟𝗍, you could, if you know the 𝗓𝗡𝗟𝗍, you could kind of work with the body stepping into it. So a classic one would be like a 𝗓𝗡𝗟𝗡𝗘, or you want going in and then going into the technique. And it would be like stepping in. And then going into it, you could add the atemi in if you wanted to. And so if you know those forms, maybe just explore them a bit. If they're a bit unfamiliar, don't tend to practice them a lot in terms of basic techniques. But very nice techniques. Also got them variations of it, going over the shoulder, going over the back of the body, going to the back of the body. You've got 𝗔𝗓𝗍𝗓 variation going into it, but they're all kind of fundamentally in this kind of, one way you could look at them is in this kind of cross-body connection with the body, with the across the body. Again, it's the feeling of trying to globalize the pressure through the system. And it goes back to a really simple idea, would be like spreading out from the core of the body. So creating that sensation in the body and spreading it. Increasing the pressure through the movement and then releasing it out. Goes, funnily enough, back to a kind of whip kind of motion later if it's fluid, flexible. Yeah, very good. Great. Great. And then last minute or so with this, just play with a bit more of a neutral position and just play with more of a kind of koki shape. So just playing with a kind of loose connection with the arm. Obviously two things I want to kind of work away. One is like fully contracted and one is fully extended. But everything in between, just kind of play with it. The key thing now is just really think about the hip, the foot and the hand and really working together. So kind of three aspects of the connection. And obviously you could do that one-sided and then you could bring in both and then both sides of the body. So you can think, you could go back to a very simple connection, which would be same side connection. Right foot, right hand, right hip. Left hand, left hip, left foot. Or again, you could keep the feeling of the cross body kind of feeling. It would be like left foot all the way through to the right hand. And then with them both happening together, just start to explore. And then all movements are kind of possible from there once you've got it. But just play with that feeling again, a little bit of pressure. And again, it can be useful to do it with a band or with a resistance. But ultimately the feeling of it's going to come from the core of the body and spreading out. And you could imagine, or you could feel, that you're kind of moving through a little bit of a heavier space if you don't feel so much in terms of movement. Actually, we make a big mistake a lot of time. If you don't feel it, that's actually probably good. If you're not feeling anything, it's probably a good thing. If my shoulder's screaming at me, that's probably in a really wrong area. So, I make a mistake in a lot of the solo work that I should be feeling weight, or I should be feeling pressure or something, and maybe it's something else actually. But we obviously feel the body's kind of agile, powerful. Great. Good. And then we'll go into a little bit slower, but just think about kind of maybe coming to a bit more restricted position with the hands. And then just play with that connection again, so it's the same kind of feeling with it. The key thing with this, what a lot of times we do is we go like weapons first and then body work. And sometimes you take a lot of that restriction into the body work, so then it becomes quite tight, intense, and particular style, maybe which is very rigid. Is going to kind of fall into that trap easier. So in our case, we tend to do that. But think about taking that flexibility here, the joint system, and take it into the weapon work, or the feeling of the weapon work. So you can imagine having the sword, obviously. But just think about all that mobility, particularly in the wrist, forearm area. And again, the tendency is to now go into the hands and let the hands kind of lead everything. Go really back again to the feeling of the body and spreading the connection out from the core and passing the movement two ways, one to the foot, or to the feet, and one to the hands. It's kind of spreading connection out through the body. If you don't feel so much that connection, just play with maybe like a pulsing movement. So I could like pulse through it. On the extreme, you could jump the spot, but just get the feeling that the hands and the core of the body are connected. And the cores connecting down to the feet, through the feet. So you want to feel kind of within that restricted position of the hands, still the freedom to explore the joint system. With the same kind of restrictions a lot of the time that you get like being grabbed. Yeah, so the body's restricted and then where I'm actually free to move around. Because a lot of the taijutsu is kind of inspired by the 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦 patterns. So a lot of our techniques are actually locked in a sense. Good. 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 And then when you're ready, just grab a walking and just go into the same exercise, which would be just again just the same one. So you just play a little bit with the grip. Now you've got the weight in the front of the body. Depends on the weight of your bokken, obviously you've got a little bit more weight or a little bit less. But just do that. And then again, just move around with it. But again, notice all the tendency goes to the front, the body to the hands. That's fine, and obviously that's just where the connection tends to be weakest. And that's where I need to kind of focus the connection. So finding a grip which is again kind of supple, but full in terms of connection. And then again, once you've got the feeling where the hands start to feel a little bit more secure, maybe a little bit more comfortable. Again, just start to feel you can move around a little bit more. You could take this anywhere. You could use a lighter bokken, you could use a heavier bokken. You could, again, go back to no bokken, kind of drop it every once in a while. Good. Yeah, good. Yeah, notice what within the restriction, it kind of comes up anyway, but notice the tendency then is to kind of lock the body as one piece. So nothing wrong with this connection, and it's kind of, maybe it's a little bit better than a kind of very loose connection, where everything's kind of splitting up. But just be careful of one thing, which will be that everything starts to kind of jam together. And then everything becomes kind of just locked, but just give yourself freedom, and give yourself the freedom to kind of maybe come out of structure as well. So maybe it means actually going back to real disconnection, or what feels like disconnection. And then the body's going to kind of look naturally for the connection, and it's going to start to work with it. Actually, my feeling is not to go really rigidly to lock the body as one piece, which is generally a tendency you get, particularly in Japanese martial arts, but sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. Very good. Okay. And then with this one, just allow yourself, again, working maybe out of structure and then coming back in. You're never really out of structure, but working maybe with a not so good structure. And then feel that the moment you kind of pass into the center of the body. So that will be like in a simple sense, in this one will be like 𝗔𝗜𝗞𝗜𝗙𝗢 and here. And then just allow yourself to kind of just gently kind of pulse through it. So it's just a kind of test of the connection. I'm just kind of trying to speak to the organ a little bit and check it's kind of there. So I'm not kind of shaking it out, kind of do this, but I'm just kind of taking a pulse from the core of the body. Also sending it down to the feet, obviously, but take that for granted maybe. Just feel that the connection's there, so kind of come in and out of it. And then feel that you can kind of pass in, and then notice where that feeling's strong. If I do that with a feeling where I'm out of structure, yeah, the feedback will go like, ooh, it will feel like dispersing and splitting. If you're in the right kind of position, or generally the right position, and you kind of send an impulse into it, you'll feel the body kind of maybe just vibrate as one piece. So it's literally sending an impulse to the periphery of the body, and I'm trying to include the sword in that as far as I can, out to the tip and beyond. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, good. Okay, good. And for sword work particularly, and for particularly this is where the hand, the grip and the hand position is really important, because if I'm in a grip which is incorrect for this movement, will be like if I go to that position, I'm kind of holding it to the side, and then I do this, and the sword will do like, ooh, it will do that because the hands are in this position, so it will kind of wobble this way. But for this position, you want to be kind of this feeling again, you're kind of on top of the grip. And then the grip needs to also be in a way not strangling the weapon, because if I'm way too tight with the sword, then it's just the feedback in the sword's going to be like being strangled, like this. So just look for a position again, it's like really reasonably soft, reasonably relaxed. And I just want the sword to kind of just agree with that motion. So it's a tricky area of training. And then it's the one that's usually in the right area is one that I don't feel so much, which is the tricky aspect of this training. The one that feels like a lot of work probably is a lot of work, a lot of effort, and then I'm not doing the thing I'm trying to do, which is like whole body effortless power, maybe something like that. And actually the one that I feel like, whoa, I don't feel like anything, that's the one you want to look out for. Yes. Okay, good. Good. And then just play, it's the same movement, we won't go to the cut, we'll go to the ski, and it's the same kind of idea, so I'm just trying to again, play with that motion. Again, get into the core of the body, feel that connection. And then a very simple one would just be like number 6, coming forward. And again, treat it kind of lightly to start, and just feel that again that kind of impulse then is given a direction out. So it's going from that kind of feeling to that kind of feeling. And I'm just sending the impulse out. Again, if I get lost in the handwork, the body's going to kind of split up, even in a very simple exercise. So just play with, again, the feelings that go spread and send the connection out. And this again, where the out and down is the down aspect of the movement is really important, because if I don't have the down, the out takes over, and then the body goes into imbalances and then stiffness maybe later and holding patterns. So just play a little bit in a simple way. Would just be like doing the 6𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦. You could do either side, left and right, if you want. And then just a very simple way to test that connection, or just give it a direction really. I think of this one like reaching out to shake someone's hand. Yeah, I don't want to go like, whoa, and I don't want to go, somewhere a little bit more extended, maybe an aggressive handshake. Yes. Good. That's great. Good, and then it gets a little bit where the specifics come in. So if I maintain this grip, and again, so if I've got a very rigid grip or a very stiff grip, and then I go into this movement, what tends to happen is this, so the body gets kind of twisted out. So again, even with a very simple movement, then it's very difficult to kind of to release the bokken because everything's kind of working in two directions, not this direction. So play with, in this case, the right hand quite loose, and I'm going to allow it to kind of roll through this way. And it just means then the shoulder can find a position which is agreeable with this direction rather than disagreeable. It's going to start to push out this way. So then I'm basically just leaking the direction this way, and I want all the feeling to go like this way. So it's as if the fingertips are really kind of bleeding out down the tip of the weapon, but if they're going out to the side, then you created a kind of two-directional thing in a bad way. Sometimes obviously two-direction works good. In this case, we'll be countering the direction I actually want. So in this way, the specifics of the grip are important. But again, it's just basic things like aligning the motion. If you think about, I'm going to point out forwards, I'm going to point out with the fingers this way rather than this way. And it just wouldn't make sense to kind of do that. So most of the stuff in alignment is very common sense based, but we tend to not have that when we're doing patterning work or strict forms. Yeah, very good. So good. And then just to make it a bit more complex, think about number 7. So generally this is just done obviously on the left side, but think about now you've got two things. You've got this direction in, or this kind of impulse out, this one, and then you've got the roll through the hip with this one. So if I was to keep it very simplistic, it would be just again going from the right side, rolling through this way. You could obviously do that on the left side, but it's a little bit tricky. It doesn't really make sense within the system in terms of the function of the sword. If you were a left-handed person, it would make total sense to kind of go into that pattern. It's just the way in the system we kind of use it as well. So this will be when someone's generally kind of pressing down on the sword, and I'm looking to get in this way. So it generally comes up in part of the sword work because you're working with someone also probably with the right-handed grip. But in terms of balancing the body out, you could change it to the other side if you wanted to. Most people say it feels very awkward to do on that side. Well, it is, and there's a reason it feels awkward, and it just doesn't really come up in terms of that side. But you could do it. Okay. The one that does come up from that side, if you go from the left side, the one that does come up a lot in the system in terms of that work, it's not a ski predominantly, but it's this movement coming up. And you could take this into, again, a kind of impulse. It's the same kind of feeling going here, but it's working on a different direction now, which will be a little bit more up. So maybe that's a useful one to look at as well. So you've got the kind of baseline one, which will be like this kind of work, this way with this spiral. And then this one, left side work, will be like this roll up. So then this pattern comes in, and this one's going into more of a control position. Or with bokken, it could be a snap onto the fingers or the hand as a kind of strike. Really, it comes from the feeling of a controlling position, kind of neutralised. But again, based on that same idea of sending an impulse out, in that case, you've got just a bit different direction and different function to the movement, based on that same kind of spiral work of the hip. Yeah, very good. So maybe just combine them. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, just do that as a set. So you produce 3, which will be like the 6 on the right side, and then rolling through into the left with 7, and then rolling through into this position. Yeah, so just 3 kind of impulses. You've got a very simple one, just forward and out. You've got a more complex one with an arc through underneath, and then you've got a big opening spiral up to the top this way. Now that's one probably the most challenging because you're really going to this kind of two-directional thing, and then I'm really reaching out and up in this case, or up and down in this one. Nice. And yeah, note maybe there's ones you don't really feel anything so much. That's probably a good one. If I feel a lot of kind of pressure tension in the bicep, for example, or the hands or the fingers start to take a lot of it, the shoulder starts to disagree. Those are probably the ones where I'm working a bit out of structure. So maybe the ones which feel a bit kind of quiet in the body are actually the kind of functional ones. Maybe they're the kind of efficient ones as well. Nice. That's good, good. Great. All right. Let's just take it into a little bit of 𝗓𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨𝗦 work. So go very simply into the first 𝗓𝗔𝗞𝗘𝗠𝗨, like go and go, and think about that same kind of impulse now. So you've got really a nice movement in a sense. So you've got one kind of direction in terms of the movement, obviously for the impulse now. It's really like a down kind of feeling. So it's really prioritizing back to the ground in this case, sinking down with it. So back on the spot in the case of the body work. Draw into the back foot, really allows you to find the spine long, and then give yourself a nice kind of impulse down. And you want to really complete the cut in this case. It'd be like you're dropping the sword into the ground. Nice. So. Great. Good. Okay, good. And we do it quite a lot all the time, so just maybe let's go to one form which is just the same but more fluid, flexible. So the key with this is don't move the left foot in this one. So it allows it to drain in to the foot and then just press in. So you're just going from really like go fully to the back and then drop into it. So you're just playing within the feet. What you're looking for if you're to make this a little bit more flexible is really that there's no pausing point in the movement. So a pause point would be like clack and then into the cut. Kunk, and then into the cut. So it will be at any point where generally the whole body stops moving, and you're trying to just kind of take that corner out of the exercise. The way that the reason not to move the foot just makes it easier to find that connection. So you're just playing with the weight going into the foot and then leaving it, and think that there is a 100% point, but it goes straight away back to 99 and then down back to 50. And you want to kind of just get out of the kind of pausing phase. Obviously, if you want to hang out in that area, just hang out in that area, but see if you can take it into one smooth movement. Okay. This is interesting. Just watch this also. It's not that my body's waiting for the sword, so just check this. A sticking point for me would be like I go here and then I'm waiting for the sword to reach the back and then I go with the body. But in this case, you're actually going to kind of find that within the motion. Yeah, so the tip of the sword, the point where the sword touches the back, it's a tricky point to explain. Let me see, but it's not that I'm kind of getting to position and then waiting for the sword to right and then going. Again, that's a kind of sticking point because I'm going to ba, but think about it's going to be like whoom, somewhere in that kind of area. So I'm basically not waiting for the sword, just kind of go to the movement. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, good. And the sword, if I'm kind of doing that correct movement, the sword will just kind of come to me anyway. So it's mostly it's just a kind of timing issue, and again, it's because generally we're locking the body together in connection, and then because the rhythm of the arms is different to the rest of the body, it gets caught in one pattern and it just gets basically out of its natural rhythm. But if you go to again like swinging patterns, the arm has a natural rhythm, which I just need to kind of tie into the rest of the body, and then it's just an issue of timing really throughout the body. Tricky, huh? Okay. And then just the last week, just play with the three moves we did. apart from the last one you can't do, but maybe just play with the ski work. So it will be like this, and then out into a ski. So give yourself a little bit of a pause, a brief pause. It could be 6 or 7. So let's try and make that one piece. Land into the ground, and then spring out of it. So still in a kind of 𝗙𝗏, moving into kind of your Aikikai, a little bit more flexible training, but give yourself a pause here. You also allow that to find the ground, and then find the ski out of it. And again, you're just trying to train that impulse feeling now back into the pattern. But a very simple one will be like 𝗔𝗓𝗞𝗜𝗚𝗏 into a 𝗧𝗔𝗞𝗜𝗚𝗏. Okay, nice. And you might start to feel the body wants to go into more fluid flow. Follow it. Good. If you want, just slightly put the brakes on the movement, allow it to settle, and then go. And if I have to do the kind of fluid form, it's going to be kind of embedded from the beginning. So you could obviously split the first movement up and then focus on that, but it would actually be easier, much more natural if I actually get the fluid flow feeling from this position and straight into it. So I carry it with me from the beginning of the movement. Boom, boom. There we go. Okay. Notice one thing. Don't think so much about stepping forward with this, particularly if you go to 7. There's a tendency to go here and then step out, and then I'm stepping out of structure. So don't think so much about stepping out. And the use of this pattern will be to just go around this way. So most of the function of this movement will actually be on the spot. But generally, because of the distance issue we've got in the exercises, a lot of the time I'm kind of stepping out and then going here. And I'm trying to bridge a gap which actually doesn't exist because it's a safety flaw within the exercise that we're practicing, if that makes sense. But the main thing will be just, again, being comfortable with it. This doesn't tend to come up with the 6th verb, but it could. Kind of trying to step out way too far. So it's just an issue in this case of here, and then here. So you're here, and then you're here. And it's not that you don't step off, you can adjust this out. But I want to be mindful of going like outside the base in terms of stepping too far. And if I do that, it's going to be more of like a jumping, skipping step, and then it's going to look a little bit different. It does come up later in some of the variations. But for basic work, I'm working a bit more comfortably maybe. And then just see if you can find any movement. Hey, John, thanks a lot. Thank you. Just see if you can find last few, just play with going into that strike, and then just see what kind of comes out next with it. So it could be maybe going into another 𝗔𝗓𝗞𝗜𝗚𝗏 or a 𝗔𝗓𝗏, or it could go into maybe a slice. Just see what kind of starts to come up with it. So go into a second strike. So just play with anything that starts to come up. The last minute or so. If you get stuck for ideas, just go back to those original kind of ski work. Those are like really very, very simple ones. Everything you need in terms of that connection work. Ah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah. Then it's a slicing. Good. And again, if you feel the body start to go into a little bit more flowing form, just follow it. Or that kind of flowing thing should just kind of follow naturally in a sense, rather than going on like I'm going to really consciously change gear and shift into the next level. And maybe it should just kind of appear in the training, and then I follow it. Yeah, good. Ah, very good. Nice. Very good. Yeah. Very good. Good. And then last 30 seconds, so just go nice and slow with this, but just start to move around freely, just anything. So just start to generate movements. Keep it quite light, and just look for a kind of light impulse with it. Again, calm and slow. And again, maybe the ones where I don't feel so much tension in the body, or a lot of feedback in the body, maybe those are the kind of right ones. and they tend to get missed. If I'm going too slow, or if I'm going too fast, too much power. Maybe I never find them there, but these ones are a little bit, have a kind of quiet feeling in the body. Maybe they're just not powerful at all, and they're just loose. And then that feedback tends to come up with the booking as tension. So, last. Is that? Okay, great. Nice. Very nice. Perfect. Good. All right, we will stop right there. Very good. Great. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Domo, arigato gozaimasu.
Alrighty. Good. Thank you very much. Here we go. And
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.